All right, so I'm going to show you how to do the pre-op checks for the nitric oxide. First, I'm going to show you the different parts of the machine. Obviously, it'll be put together hopefully right now in our bag, but it's easier to show you how things connect, spread out. So we have the iNOMax DSIR, which is the same one that the hospital uses. This is the main console. We have an iNO blender, which this cable is already connected, so this won't never come apart. And then we have a 50 PSI O2 hose that you do have to connect. You have the regulator with the regulator cable. Obviously the regulator is the gray cable, so this is the regulator cable. Then you have the infrared cap, and then the infrared cap cable. And this is what's going to connect to the nitric bottle and to our machine. The main part, and all of these will come in little separate baggies. I don't think I have one, but you'll just have to put them together. So this is the injector module. There's a new one out there that's green. They work the same, it's just a newer version of it. This is the injector module electrical cable, and this is the injector module tubing. And I'll show you how these connect. They have the same connector on each side. It doesn't matter which way. This will connect into the back of this. So this is how your injector module is connected. The other parts of the machine that we need is this. This is called the gas sample line. And this disc filter does come already connected to it. So this will come in one separate bag. And then you have the gas sample T, which kind of looks like an end title. And this connects like that, just a little twist. So this is another part that you'll need. You have two different size adapters. This one's a 22 French. This is a 22-15. Typically, this will be referred to as a 22, and this is a 15. And those are adapters that we'll need when we attach it to the vent. For the pre-op check, you have 4 extra adapters. This is just regular, 4 extra pieces, regular O2 tubing. You have a 15 by 4.5 adapter. You have another 15 and then a 6-inch piece of tubing. So that will be used for the pre-op check. When you are running the machine, you'll have your vent. You'll have 2 filters like we've been using, and then I will show you how to hook up a dual limb circuit and the coaxial circuit. So first thing, and then you have your nitric bottle, and you'll have an oxygen bottle, which is required for the pre-op check. So I'm going to flip this around so you can see the on button is right here. And what I'm going to do first is show you how to connect everything, and then we'll go through the 5 pre-op. This takes a couple minutes to warm up. So basically there's 5 checks. The first check is simply making sure everything is connected. The second check is making sure that you have no leaks and you're purging your line. And then the last 3 checks are testing each one of the 3 delivery systems to make sure they're working appropriately. So we have the main console, we have our integrated backup, and then we have the blender, which is like the backup. So all we're doing is basically we're going to tell the machines how much nitric to deliver, and we're going to see if it's delivering nitric within an appropriate range. And if they all work, then we're ready to go ahead and run nitric. So this is how, first thing is when you get a nitric bottle, it's going to come just like this. This red thing just means it's a sample. This won't be on here, and it'll have cellophane on it. So in order to open it, you just take the lock off. This just makes it so it doesn't get cracked. You'll take this off. Your regulator, I'm going to put this back down because it's easier. All right, the regulator just screws in like that. Make sure it really seats, otherwise it will shoot off when you crack the tank. So the regulator goes onto here, and I'll just do it step by step. So the regulator is this. The gray line is the regulator cable, which is this one. There are 2 spots for it. That's because in the hospital they always have 2 tanks. It does not matter which port you use. So you're going to plug it in. And one thing to note with the regulator outlet is it's a push. So in order to release it, you have to push the pin in and pull it out. And that's going to be important for when you have to depressurize and purge your line. The next thing is this is the infrared cap. This is how electronically it tells your tank how much nitric to deliver. It only goes on one way. There's a little key, as you can see right here. This tank will not run without the infrared cable cap on it. So this goes on there. And again, the black one is the infrared cable. There's a spot right here, it says IR, which is where this goes. And it's just like, has the red dot that you match up. And then the last connection is your blender. And like I said, this is already connected, so you don't have to connect that. And this goes in the 3rd spot. And this one is the opposite of the regulator cable. You actually pull this one back to release it. So you just put it on. And then there's a protective cap so it can't come loose. So those are the 3 connections that you have. Each one of them are different, so unless you really, I'm sure we can all find ways to jam them on, but they will only fit into their certain spots. So right now we have our nitric bottle is connected to the back, our blender is connected, and our power cord is connected. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this around. Okay. So like I said, the first step is to basically make sure all of that is connected. And when you are doing your pre-op checks, unless you are just getting back from a call, this should already all be connected, but it's just going to go through and verify everything's connected. It will talk you through. So we're just going to talk through it. So initial connections is this first pre-op check. It says confirm water trap bottle and water separator cartridge are in place. This is the sample bottle, and this is the separator cartridge. And this just clicks into the back like this. This should probably already be in there. This typically, when patients have been on this for a long time, this can get saturated and you'll see moisture in the sample bottle. That just means that the cartridge needs to be exchanged, but in transport they're not on long enough to have it affected. There is an extra one in our case that goes with us, but that doesn't really need to be replaced every time. So confirm the water trap bottle is in place, and then it says connect the patient gas sample line to the sample inlet. And this is the gas sample line, and it's connected to the gas sample T. And this disc filter will twist. Just gently twist it till it stops, and that is where that connects. And the point of this is the injector module is going to deliver the amount of nitric we asked. This is going to sample what the patient's actually getting to measure to make sure that it's accurate. And then you push next. The next step is to connect the injector module, cable, and tubing, which I showed you before. So this is the electrical cable. This is how it's delivered. I kind of think of it like the drive line for a balloon pump. We're going to connect these to the front. These are the 2 spots. Again, they're completely different, so they only go into one spot. This has the red dot. You just have to line up. So now our injector module is connected. This is what will deliver the nitric. This is what's going to sample the nitric in our circuit. So when you transport, these are the only 3 parts that will be connected to your patient. And then you click next. It says verify main power supply is illuminated in green. That's right here. You can't really see it. It's plugged in. You can run the pre-op checks without it plugged in. This is just showing that you have a charge. The battery lasts 6 hours. In about 30 minutes, it'll start to beep at you if it's not been plugged in. I would suggest just plugging it in to the truck or aircraft as soon as you get in there, like you do the balloon pump. All right, so this is green. Click next. It says load 2 iNOMax cylinders onto cart and check the concentration and expiration date. We only will have one nitric bottle, like I showed you, connected. There will be a second bottle in the bag as a backup if there was a failure. The next step is connect the regulator to the iNOMax cylinder. So we're just going to go through to make sure it's all connected. So again, this is the regulator. So the iNOMax regulator is connected to the cylinder. Next, connect the regulator hose to the back of the machine, which is the gray tubing cable, and that is connected. Next, you're going to connect the iNO blender hose to the back, which is this gray hose, and we have this connected here, and it's got the safety lock on it. And we have a connect a high pressure hose to the back of the iNO blender and to an O2 source, which is connected here to an oxygen bottle. So that's connected. And lastly, it's making sure that the infrared cap is on the cylinder and that the cable is connected to the back, which is the black one, and that is connected. So that is the first step, the initial connections. Everything is connected. So the next step 2 of the pre-use check is to make sure that we don't have any leaks and to purge our line. So again, step 1 is verify the regulator is connected to the cylinder and to the back, which we did. That's the gray one. We're going to open and close the nitric cylinder. Let's see if I can twist this. So it's got arrows, and you just have to open it far enough until you get pressures. Most of these should be between 1,000 and 2,000. The machine really doesn't use a whole lot, but make sure it's above, it says make sure it's above 500. We're going to make sure that it's above 1,000. So you're going to open it and then close it. So basically we've put pressure, and we want to make sure that this isn't leaking. So open and close, verify you're greater than 500 PSI. It says monitor this gauge for 30 seconds to make sure that we don't have a leak, that it stays steady. And once we verify that, it means that we don't have, the high pressure test is done. So it is not going down, verifies no leak. Confirm that the injector module is not in a breathing circuit. So now the last part is we're going to purge the line. If you remember, nitric oxide, when it mixes with oxygen, creates nitric dioxide. So that's going to just purge the line so we can do the pre-use tests. It says it's purging. You can hear it. You can smell it. Alarm may activate, so that's normal. Automated purge is complete. We're going to go ahead and open this. Open the cylinder. Click next. So that was the second step. So the last 3 steps are basically just verifying that all 3 delivery systems are delivering accurately. So first one is we're going to test the integrated backup system. The integrated backup system, when you flip it, it delivers a flow of 250 mLs a minute. That is your first line backup if the electronics of this console fail. The injector module is still working, so you can still keep the patient on the vent with the injector module. In order to do the pre-op checks, though, you do have to create a little pre-use check. So it says assemble the pre-use setup connections and tubing, and there's diagrams of all of this, which will be with the machine. And honestly, once this is put together, it's pretty much, you can reuse it over and over. So you take your O2 tubing, your 15 by 4.5 adapter. You're going to take one of your 15 adapters. You're going to connect it to your injector module. You have a 6-inch piece of corrugated tubing, and then you connect your gas sample line. So assemble the pre-use setup, and then you're going to connect your O2 tubing to an oxygen bottle. So if you think about it, basically what we're doing is the O2 is coming through here. It's kind of acting as your vent. It's going to create a flow. We're going to tell the injector module how much nitric to give, and then this sample line is going to see how much is actually being delivered to make sure it's within range. So that's what these 3 tests are doing. So the first one, assemble the pre-use, set the O2 flow meter to 10 liters. right, then you click next. Turn the integrated backup on, which is, and it says verified backup alarm occurs. Backup alarm does occur. Then you click next. And now what we're doing is monitoring the values. Again, we're seeing if what we told the injector module to give is within range. So once they stabilize, they don't have to be dead set, but once they stop, you know, going up or down, you're making sure that the NO2 level, which is right here, is less than 1, and that your nitric oxide is between 14 and 26. So they've pretty much stabilized. This is less than 1, and this is between 14 and 26, which means the integrated backup is working appropriately. So then we click next. So backup delivery test is complete. Turn the integrated backup off. And that was step 3. So the 4th step is we're going to test the main console now. So you're going to verify the flow meter is set to 10 liters. It's still running at 10 liters. We still have the pre-use set up. Click next. It says press next button to automatically set the iNOMax dose to 40 parts per million. And again, we are just verifying that these values are within range. So FiO2 should be 92 or above. Nitric dioxide should be less than 1.5, and nitric oxide is between 35 and 45. So if you think about it, we asked it to give 40 parts per million of nitric, so we want to make sure that it's delivering between 35 and 45 with an appropriate range. So values have stabilized. This is greater than 92. The nitric dioxide is less than 1.5, and the nitric oxide is between 35 and 45 at 38. So this is working appropriately. Oh, and click next. So this performance test is complete. It turns the iNOMax doses back to 0, and you can turn off your flow meter. Remove the pre-use oxygen tubing. All right, so the last test is the iNO blender. Like I said, this integrated backup is going to be your first line backup. If you have an injector module failure or this whole console doesn't work, you will have to go to your blender, which means you have, if you think about it, if you're using the blender, it's because your injector module isn't working. Therefore, you're going to have to take the patient off the vent and deliver nitric oxide via bag valve mask. So the only difference you have to make for this pre-use is to take the injector module out. Because think about it, the only time you're going to be using the iNO blender, or the blender, is if your injector module isn't working. So we remove it. We're going to connect it to the front of the iNO blender, which goes right here. So this is the pre-use set. Then we click next. Remove injector module from the pre-use setup and reconnect, which we did. We took it out, put these back together. Set the iNO blender dose to 40 and the flow meter to 10. Next. And now we are verifying that the nitric oxide is between 32 and 48 once they stabilize. You're not going to have a nitric dioxide monitoring because you don't have the injector module in, so you don't have the actual tubing where the nitric dioxide can get stuck. So it stabilized at 37. That's within parameters. So we click next. Turn the dose and the flow meter back to 0. And your iNO blender test is complete. So those are your 5 tests. The next step is, theoretically, the plan is to be completing this prior to leaving. So what you need to do now, all of this can come out. We are done with the pre-op checks. So we're going to go ahead, and it is important. Nitric, as you guys know, is expensive. So we want to close this cylinder. And then we want to bleed the line. So in order to do that, this is, again, your regulator cable is the gray one. And this is the one where I told you have to push it in. So you're going to push it in. and bleed your line until your regulator is down to 0. So now your line has been purged, and you can turn this off, and these, since you've already used these and you know they're calibrated and working correctly, you can take them off, roll them up and put them in the bag, and then when you get to the patient, these are the ones that you'll be using. You will have spares of these in the bag in the event something doesn't work, and then you would turn, it says if not starting within 10 minutes, close, purge, and you can turn off your machine. When you go back in, when you get to the hospital, it'll allow you to skip all that pre-op check since it's been done within 12 hours. All right, this is the screen that you see when nitric is running, what you see when you're in the unit. All right, so you do have an alarm button. It's 100 or 2 minutes. I'll show you. You have, alarm history. It does have high priority and low priority alarms, just like the vent has red and yellow. Pretty much the high priority alarms are if something's kinked or if your bottle isn't open. The O2 on here should be what your FiO2 on your vent is set at. Again, your nitric dioxide should be less than 3, and the nitric oxide should be within range of what you set it at. So the way you set it, it's one soft key. I don't know, we've got less oxygen in this room. So once you get your medical command orders, you click this soft key. You'll dial up to what your orders are. Typically, you'll start at 20, and you can go up to 40. I haven't seen it much above 40. If it doesn't work at 40, they don't think it usually will work at 60. And then you hit it again, and that sets your dose. Now, what I wanted to show you was we have an alarm because it's showing us that our bottle is not open. So anytime you have an error, it's going to show you exactly what's wrong. So bottle isn't open. We'll open the bottle or the cylinder, and you'll see a green cap, and that alarm will go. And this is saying that we have 16% oxygen in the room. That's the only reason why this is flashing. So right now you can see we don't have flow, so you're not going to have numbers here. But it shows you that the patient's receiving nitric oxide, and if there's any error, if your injector module is to go bad, that will turn red. If there's a kink in a line, it'll show you where. These are your alarm priority, or your high and low alarms. They will set 10 above, 10 below for the nitric oxide, the oxygen, and then the NO2 is set at 3. So I don't know why this won't go below. Yeah. So that's how, basically the running of it is just adjusting this. In your EMS charts, you'll document what time, what dosing, just like you do drips. The high cal is done every 28 days. Respiratory therapy is doing that for us. The low cal, which is what you just did, pre-use check, it tells you the last time it was done. And then this settings, which we do have to adjust the time because that's incorrect. And then your alarm history. So I think that's pretty much the running of it. All you're going to be adjusting in transport is the dosing. All right, so let me show you how real quickly to connect it to the vent. So I'm going to close my cylinder, purge my line. All right, we'll turn that off.